Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready to live an inspired and empowered life? Today, we'll be talking about how to stay calm in a chaotic world. Join me, Nanci Deutsch, licensed clinical social worker and intuitive breakthrough expert, to learn how to achieve peace when the world around you is chaotic. You may have personal challenges to overcome, family issues that feel overwhelming, and national and world events that keep you feeling anxious. Learn how you can turn this around and feel serene no matter what. And I'll be sharing 3 principles to finding peace within. Discover the number one mistake that could keep you from feeling calm. And during the show, we'll have experiential exercises that will help you process what you're absorbing. And when you join us live on Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern on W4WN.com, Talk4 TV and Talk4Radio.com. You can join in the chat room and make comments. And I love to hear your questions and your comments in the chat room. So I hope you can join us live either today or soon, coming soon. And together, let's create a life you love. I'm your host, Nanci Deutsch, and as I said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified hypnotherapist, and intuitive breakthrough expert. And I combine my counseling, coaching, and intuitive abilities to help you transform yourself and your life. This show is not a replacement for counseling or coaching, but it is for educational purposes only. And I saw that we have Allie in the house, and she's sending a hug. And we have Marie. Marie, welcome. Oh, good morning, beautiful. Thank you. I'm so grateful to both of you and everyone else who's ready to join and everybody else who is watching. And I look forward to connecting with all of you in some way soon. So I am so grateful that I have the ability, the intuitive abilities, where I can see and hear and feel and work with clients using my therapeutic skills as a licensed clinical social worker for over 30 years. And being able to tap into the counseling, coaching, and intuitive abilities. But it wasn't always this way. And I suffered from anxiety and depression, low self-esteem, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And I know what it's like to live in that place of fear and wake up in fear. And it was a really long road. And then one day, I got myself into a training program that I knew would help me heal my own trauma and help me heal the trauma of the clients that I work with. And during that time, I did some deep healing and really started connecting and getting even more skills like neurolinguistics programming and hypnosis and so many other skills and abilities. And so now I can share all of this with you. And I love sharing all of this with you because I want to help you transform your life and help you create a life you love. So last week's show, we talked about the first principle of keeping calm in a chaotic world. And that first principle is clearing your energy and clearing your trauma. And in order to clear your energy and clear your trauma, there's different ways that you can go about that. So using meditation or prayer or exercise, and we talked all about that last week. This week, we're going to be talking about the principle number 2. And principle number 2 is all about learning boundaries and self-care. So who here wants to learn more about better boundaries and self-care? Type yes in the chat room. And I want to hear from all of you. And in order to get on to be able to go into the chat, when you're listening live, what you do is you go on to talk4tv.com, and there is a button that says listen live, and you go into and you click that button, and then you'll go into YouTube live, and that's where you can make the comments. So I look forward to hearing from you. And Allie and Marie and all of you are ready? Yes, they say yes. Let's talk about boundaries and self-care. So, what do you need to do to have better boundaries and learn how to have better self-care? So one of the important things is learning to take time for yourself. It's learning to carve time, and you have a busy life and you have maybe a crazy schedule, but learning to find that time, and it may be in the mornings before the kids get up or before the family gets up, or when you roll out of bed, or maybe it's staying in bed for a few extra minutes. Or maybe it's before you go to sleep at night. It's finding that way to take the alone time and carve that alone time for you. That's important for good self-care. Now, I've talked to clients about even 5 minutes a day, starting their day in a spiritual way or a positive way. So self-care is also about finding the things that support you to start your day. I know for me, meditation is really important. Now, for some of you, you may need to exercise before you meditate. Some of you may need to meditate before you do anything else. Some of you may need to pray or do inspirational readings. Whatever you do, it's finding your way of starting your day in that positive spiritual way. And you'll hear me talk a lot about that. That's important self-care. So I want to find out from those in the chat, how do you start your day in a positive way? What do you do for that self-care in the morning? And if you're not doing the self-care in the morning, then let me know what do you think stops you from doing that self-care? And we're going to go a little bit deeper into that very shortly, but I really wanted to hear from those in the chat What do you do? Because then we can share it with the audience and they can then get a better idea of what they can do, what you can do for better self-care. It's learning. Marie says, I start my day with my gratitude journal and my affirmations. Thank you, Marie. That is a wonderful way to start your day. When you start your day with gratitude and your affirmations, it gets you into that positive state of mind. And finding those positives and finding those things that you are grateful for is so crucial, because so often we look at the negative and we're not looking at the positive. So Allie says, I have my coffee and breakfast in front of my computer and read Facebook. Probably not the best. LOL. Okay, thank you, Allie. Well, having taken that time for your coffee and your breakfast is a good thing. Running to the computer, maybe not so much, because taking that time. So I have a challenge for you, Allie, if you're up to the challenge, that maybe you could start even carving out 5 minutes before you hop onto the computer and maybe bond with crystals or essential oils, or just breathe. Put a candle on. Like, having a candle can be a real positive thing. You can imagine feeling and watching the flame, and breathe, and that can help just get you into a quieter state. So maybe that could help. Oh, pet my dogs. Okay, you can pet your dogs. That could be. And then we have Wise Healings by Design. Janelle here. I started doing meditation after I exercise, and it really helped meditation easier for me. Thank you for the idea. I am so glad that you did that. So last week, Janelle got the idea from something that I had said to try exercising first before she meditates. And now she was telling me that she really got a lot from that, and meditation was easier. So I want you to try it, even if you're watching or listening to this after the show is over. We are now streaming live into my YouTube channel. So you can actually post comments on my YouTube or my Facebook, and I would love to hear from you. And so thank you all. And so Allie's talking about petting her dogs. That will help calm her down. If that helps calm you down, that's cool. So, or maybe cats, dogs or cats or some kind of animal can help quiet you down. Something around bonding with animals can really help you go into a quieter space too. So animals are, because they're nature, and they actually have a way of helping us really quiet down as well. Especially, I remember watching my cat and just watching how she would move and be very intentional. Like they're just being. They're so present and being, and we need to learn from them, because we end up in our heads. How many of you end up in your head? And you need to learn from your animals who just are. They just are. And it's learning to just be and be present in the moment. So self-care and boundaries. Another way, and having your coffee in the morning, sometimes what I would do is I have tea. I have my tea. Sometimes I have my coffee. Sometimes it's my iced coffee. Depends on the time of year. And I sometimes put on the YouTube. Sometimes I put on the candles. whatever I'm feeling guided to. And I just sit in the quiet and in the silence. And that's how I like to start my day. And then I may go into writing and journaling, or I may go into meditation. Like today, I needed to do some writing. And excuse me, allergies have been like really challenging the last few days. So today I had to do some writing before I meditated. And the writing and the journaling helped. And last week I talked about the morning pages because this is a really good self-care tool. And I'm going to talk about it again because it's a really powerful tool. So Julie Cameron wrote a book called The Artist's Way. And in The Artist's Way, she talked about doing 3 pages, like it's like a brain dump in the morning, and you just journal for 3 pages. Anything that comes to you. I didn't do 3 pages. I did 1, but that felt enough. That was what I needed this morning, and then I was able to meditate. And just write, and you write, and you write whatever's coming to you. So you're just letting it out. You're venting to your journal. And in that venting, it lets out that old energy so that you can be present and more present and still. And learning. Now, learning boundaries is a more challenging task. Because if you're not giving yourself that time alone in the morning, and animals can be helpful, but sometimes you may need to do it even without the animals, because sometimes animals can even be a distraction. Now, it really depends. You need to really tune in to what you need, and that's your intuition guiding you, because sometimes you may want your animal, and sometimes you may need to close the door to the kids, the animals, the people, and just put a do not disturb sign and give yourself some time just for you. What would that be like? What would that be like? Taking time just for you. And really, that's about setting a boundary. Learning to say, please do not disturb. I need my alone time. Taking time for you. Essential self-care. And in boundaries, it's also learning to be able to limit chaos. So if family is chaotic in the morning, now if you have really young kids, then you may need to get up before them, even a few minutes, to just give yourself that time. Or maybe it's in the evenings when you put the kids to get bed. Now, if you have older kids, you're going to need to set limits with them too, because they may want your attention in their ways. It's different, but it's learning to say, this is my time. I need this right now. It's giving yourself, and even if you have a partner or a husband, a spouse, whatever, you may need to set the boundary with them as well. And say, I need this time. I need this time for me. And another way of setting boundaries that I have found with clients that is really crucial is limiting news. When we have things going on like war, last year we had riots, when we had the pandemic that affected every single nation around the world, what was going to happen, the uncertainty and the fear can go sky high, and it can create anxiety. And so what do you do? What you do is you need to limit news and find a way to structure your day so that you are limiting the news and being able to calm yourself down after you hear the news, because the news can trigger that anxiety. And going back to the first principle, clearing your trauma, what happens is when you clear your trauma and you clear your energy, it will help you not get so susceptible to the news. And I'm going to share with you Felicia's story. And Felicia used to be really anxious about national and world events. And what would happen is it would create so much more anxiety for her. And what happened is, as we started healing her trauma, and as she started learning those better boundaries, she began to limit how much news she was getting. And what she noticed is her states of peace and calm and even joy started to grow. And that's what happens. Now, I'm not saying not to watch news, but it's finding your boundaries. Now, it's not only with the news, it's finding where your boundaries are, where your limits are. And the way that you do that is through your body and through awareness. When you have that body sensation or the awareness like, oh, I've had enough. Like maybe some of you overdo it with food. I know, especially during holiday times or birthdays or events, we can easily overdo food. And it's learning those boundaries. It's learning to say, I've had enough. It's time for me to not continue. And it's the same with the news. It's same with chaos. Like if you're talking to a friend and you really want to be there for your friend, but what happens is that this person can be really negative and you're working on being really positive. And you may love this person and it may be a friend or it may be a relative. Like Cindy. She used to really, she had this really close friend and she loved talking to her. But as she started changing and healing and growing and becoming more positive, Cindy started really having a hard time with her friend. And so what I coached Cindy to do was to start limiting her time. And again, setting the boundaries and the self-care. Because one of the important essential points for you to remember is you are not responsible for anyone else's happiness. Anyone else's happiness. So, I really want to hear from you. We're going to do a sentence completion. So the sentence is, a way I block my self-care is. So write it down or speak it and let the first things come to you. A way I block my self-care is. Marie says, let's hear what Marie says. Marie loves the YouTube video of the mom eating her candy in the closet to have a minute away from her 4 toddlers. I may turn my closet into a she shed. Okay, so you may need to find a way to set those boundaries. And that mom ended up going into the closet, but maybe it's the bathroom. Or maybe it's just finding a few breaths. When you have 4 toddlers, that's a lot. Maybe it's about finding self-care. So thank you, Marie, for that YouTube experience. So back to the sentence completion, a way I block my self-care. So how do you block your self-care? Now, if you're listening live, type into the chat how you block your self-care. A way you block your self-care is, if you're listening at a later time or viewing at a later time, stop the audio, stop the video, and take notes and just allow whatever comes to you. Use this as a workshop exercise so that you can get understanding of what's going on for you that blocks your self-care. So how do you block your self-care? So a way I block my self-care is sometimes I keep doing and going, and distraction by the go, go, go instead of being. Now, Janelle says, a way that I block my self-care is by having a routine that includes it, especially in the morning. So you block your self-care by having, so let me see if I have this right, because I want to make sure that I have it right. You block it because you have this structured routine and it doesn't allow you to be more spontaneous if something else comes to you. So it's learning how to be more spontaneous would be maybe self-care for you. Now, also know routine is important. So it depends. It's around learning the balance between the routine and the spontaneity. So being able to go with the flow and see what you need in that moment for your self-care. So thank you, Janelle, for that, because that was important. And Marie says, I block my self-care by always answering the phone calls from the person I know is negative. Thank you, Marie. Really, again, that's about learning the boundary and knowing that it's okay for you to say no with your time, that you deserve to have your time and say no or not right now. And even answering the negative person at a later time, you can also limit. I had a friend, I remember, and she told me that she would give her friends about 5 minutes of vent time. And then she's like, okay, let's turn this around. What are you learning from me? Now, you're not their coach and you're not their therapist, but how can you support them if they're open? If they're not even open to other ways of being, then you need to really find the way to do your self-care and say, I need to get off right now, or, be able to start saying no. And Allie says, I block my self-care by putting everyone else first. And that is, thank you, Allie, that is also very common. So all of you actually have very common, and I really support you all, and I really thank you all for sharing, because it's very easy to put others first, especially when you are a giver. And when you are a giver and you give, it's totally a mind shift for yourself, and learning how to be able to say no and start giving to yourself first. So it's learning those boundaries and learning that self-care, learning to say no. And it's a process. It's a total process in being able to learn the no's, especially because what has happened when you're a giver and you have put everyone else before yourself. It's a learned pattern and a learned behavior. Now, many of you, or most of you that are watching, are givers. And even if you're not, it's learning how to find that balance. And that's what givers need to learn, is how to find the balance between the giving, because your heart wants to just give, give, give. But if you're giving from obligation, and this is where learning where that line is, you can ask yourself this question: am I giving to this person right now from a sense of obligation, or I have to? Or am I giving because right now I feel full, my cup runneth over, and I want to? Now, it could be a combination of both, and that's possible too. But it's learning to be able to take that time to do the self-care before you give to the others. Now, on the planes, they say, put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on the kids. And that is an important lesson we givers all need to learn, that you need to put the self-care oxygen mask on first. Learning to say no to the telephone calls, learning to say no to all the people in your life that are asking or demanding or needing your help or support. Learning to say no. And it's a journey and it's a process, and even learning to find that structure for you to be able to say, you know what, I've had enough, or I need to stop. I need to find my no. That's an all-important learning boundaries. Now, the next sentence is, a way I need to increase my self-care is. A way I need to increase my self-care is. So type in the chat room, how do you need to increase your self-care? What can you do? What's one way that you can increase your self-care? So I really want to hear from you. So just excuse me, my allergies. How can you increase your self-care? One way I can increase my self-care is. So type in the chat, how can you increase your self-care? Where do you need to find the no's? Where do you need to set the boundaries, set the limits? Finding a way to increase your self-care. So a way I can increase my self-care is learning even more to say no to a person in my life that can be challenging for me. We all have relationships that may challenge us. And I have that too. And it's learning to say no to this person. And pay more attention, Marie says, pay more attention to how I'm feeling when I'm about to answer those calls. Yay! Yay, Marie, that is huge. Taking a moment before you pick up the phone and breathe and pay attention. Is this really what you want to do right now? And is that what you need? So yay, great, thank you. And Allie says, I can increase my self-care by eating healthier and taking time to enjoy food instead of eating while working. Yes, Allie, that's huge. Being able to nurture your body, that's all about self-care, is self-nurturing and nurturing, learning the boundaries, learning, being able to have that self-care by eating healthy or nurturing your body. That's essential self-care. So thank you, Allie, for that. And you can increase your self-care by eating healthier and listening to your body. What does your body want? What does your body need? Because just like Marie needs to listen to our body before the calls, it's also listening to your body. I actually feel like when I'm getting ready to make lunch or dinner, what do you want, body? I ask body, what do you want? And see what I want, or what my body is craving that's going to support it. Try that for self-care. And Janelle says, I can increase my health care by blocking out more time to read my self-help books. So thank you, Janelle. And so it's learning to be able to increase your self-care by finding that time to do reading, and reading self-care, self-help books, really supporting you. So thank you all for those self-care tips. And I support all of you in finding your ways of increasing your self-care. Now, the number one mistake that would keep you from feeling calm is is not doing the self-care and not setting enough boundaries with yourself and others. And what happens is, when you are giving that energy out, when you need to be listening to yourself, it creates more chaos. It keeps you feeling anxious. And so your self-care is crucial to be able to calm yourself down, and finding the ways to calm yourself down so that you can find that peace instead of being in the chaos. Now, the third principle is changing your perceptions on how you see things and what you can do about it. So what do I mean about changing your perceptions and how you see things and what you can do about it? So, the serenity prayer. The serenity prayer is a prayer that people say in recovery, but I love that prayer. It's, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it's by Reinhold Niebuhr. And this prayer is so crucial. It's about really looking at, what can you really change? If you are a control freak and you're trying to control yourself, you're trying to control your family, you're trying to control the world or your world, you can't. You can't. And also remembering, it's not about you. You cannot change your loved ones. If you have a loved one that's hurting, if you have a loved one that's sick, you can't make them better. But what you can do is you can pray for them, and you can pray for their support. You can put them in God's hands or the universe's hands. And you can take better care of yourself. so that you can support them instead of carrying them. It's not about carrying another person. It's about learning that self-care and remembering that their journey is their journey. They've chosen this journey on some spiritual level. This was a journey that they chose to have. And also learning how to do what I call reframing. Reframing how you see things, how you view things, how you are feeling about things, and changing your perception of what you're seeing or feeling about it. So, what do I mean by that? So, Betty would often react to everything that other people were saying. And immediately she would go in her mind, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And as Betty and I worked together, and she realized that they have their own stuff. And it wasn't about what she did wrong. It was about they got their own triggers. You can't control when someone else is going to get triggered by you. You can only work on what happens for you when you react in an emotional way and learning to take care of yourself. And so what Betty started to do is she started to do the self-talk. When she noticed and became aware that she started having that reaction, what did I do wrong? She started saying, this isn't about me. I haven't done anything wrong. And she started looking at and taking care of herself. Now, if there was a mistake that she did make with somebody, she chose to apologize to the person. But most of the time, it wasn't even that at all. She was making an assumption that they were thinking she did something wrong. And so she began to start seeing things differently as we worked together. And she started seeing that it wasn't about her at all. It was really about them. Marie says you can support them, not carry them. Yes, Marie likes that. Thank you. You can support them, not carry them. It's not your job, unless you're caring for young kids or someone who's really sick and you've made that choice. It's not your job to carry somebody, to take care of. And that's where that self-care and learning to say no comes in. And so what started happening is as she did, I call it successful self-talk or supportive self-talk, she began to feel better about herself, and her feelings of self-love grew. And she started changing how she was thinking and perceiving things. So it's really about learning how to change your perceptions, becoming aware. What are you thinking? What are you saying to yourself? What are the messages you're giving to yourself? And learning to change them. Now, when you have that feeling like, oh, I want to do something, I really want to help change this world. And we have Sexy Girl says, hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so it's learning to take social action. What can you do by taking action? So sometimes it's going to be needing to be able to be guided. And again, this is where your intuition comes in, and it's being guided to take action. And maybe it's writing to your politician, maybe it's donating money, maybe it's creating a foundation, maybe it's protesting something that feels wrong to you. So it's learning to take action is a really important piece of changing what you can. It's learning to find what you can do to change what you can. And then it's learning to surrender and put it in God or the universe's or the goddess's hands. You can't help somebody if they're not willing to be helped. You can't totally, you're not responsible. Again, unless it's young children. And if you're making all these choices, what are you choosing? Because that choice empowers you. And also, I'm going to support you to getting support, to getting childcare, somehow, some way, to getting time to take care of yourself. Or if you're a caregiver to someone who's sick, again, getting support, getting an aid, getting help so that you are taking care of yourself. And learning to see things from a spiritual perspective. Now, I'm going to just touch upon that, and then at a later time, we'll go deeper into that. So it's learning to understand what are the lessons you're learning from a soul perspective. What are the things you need to understand from this experience? And as you learn all of that, it helps you grow into a more expansive being so that you can have an inspired and empowered life. And now, I really want to say thank you. Thank you for joining me today. Those that were here live, really appreciate you joining. And those of you that are watching at a later time or listening, I look forward to connecting with you soon. And hopefully somehow, some way you can join us live at some point. And I really want to thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for tuning in. Please share the show with friends and family and groups that you're a part of so that we can share and help more and more people be inspired and empowered, so that you can have an inspired and empowered life and you can bring others along on the journey. And now next week, we have a special guest, Nikki H. And she is going to talk about creativity and creativity in your everyday life. So join us next week for more inspired and empowered living. And we are live Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. And you can get the Inspired and Empowered Living.com. If you go, there's a meditation, an intuitive decision-making meditation. So we're live again Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern on W4WN.com, Talk4TV.com, and Talk4Radio.com. And I wish you all an inspired and empowered day and an inspired and empowered week. Have a great one, everybody, and goodbye for now.